Welcome, everybody, to the very first Gen Z Boomers Entrepreneurs podcast, where each month we will dive into the ambitions, challenges, and stories of the next generation of entrepreneurs. Today's theme is one that sparks plenty of debate. Different, not lesser. Understanding Gen Z's work ethic. Joining me today is Nichole Cervantes, who jumped into the corporate world at the age of 17 and brings a unique Gen Z perspective shaped by hands-on experience. Welcome, Nichole.
Hi, James. Thank you so much. It's actually a wonderful opportunity to be here today and to give the Gen Z side into a career.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to hearing that, and I, in particular, am welcoming it. So Nichole, let's jump straight into the epicenter of that debate, and I will do my very best to try to avoid coming across as the baby boomer grumpy granddad in this
Yeah.
particular conversation. So, boomers often equate hard work with long hours. So, how does Gen Z measure effort and productivity today in the workplace?
Well, in my experience, I think that you can get once if you get your job done, then that's the effort that you can achieve, that you've already given the effort to the company. It doesn't make sense to work long hours if your job is already finished. So in the terms of defining hard work is actually being efficient and doing your job correctly for Gen Z. It doesn't matter if it's long hours or short hours, as long as you do your job right, then it's hard work.
Okay, so how do you see, if you like, the architecture of the workplace changing as Gen Z become the majority? How do you see that changing?
Well, see, it's very different. Like Gen Zs also have a different perspective in that. I mean, a nice, uh, it would be a nice experience working with a ton of Gen Zs. Unfortunately, I'm not, I don't have any Gen Z coworkers, but I could, I actually want the Gen Z coworkers so I can talk to them. But in the sense of Gen Z being a majority of it, I wouldn't think it wouldn't be a much different in terms of work being done. It would be different in terms of um Gen Z's having like everyone's just leaving when it hits 5. Like no one is doing overtime, unpaid overtime. So I think that would be a really good thing to see. And a
Mhm.
lot of Gen Z have a lot of hopefulness and a lot of great ideas, especially now that since they learn more about AI, they learn more about all of the stuff that's happening in the world and how technology is evolving. So they have greater ideas in regards to that. So I think that Gen Z becoming a majority would actually be beneficial for the workplace.
Great. I'll tell you what. I'm going to pick up on that AI point with you a little bit later, Nichole, if I
Mhm.
may. Um, but if I pick up on the point where you're in your workplace, you're saying you'd love to have, a Gen Z worker to sort of like bounce off. So
Yeah.
clearly, that would infer that where you are, and I suspect where the majority of Gen Zs actually operate, the employers, the bosses, they might not be quite a baby boomer generation, but they're certainly much older.
Mhm.
How do you think those business leaders, those traditional business leaders, can in themselves change the workplace and how they work to shape a very successful career for Gen Zs?
Well, the main thing is just be open-minded, that it's different generational and like every generation has a different perspective when it comes to workplace. As you can see, like millennials were also labeled as lazy because at their time they also tried to have a workplace balance, but when it's like I said, like baby boomers time, like you said before, that long hours means hard work. um I think just being open-minded that it's different generational, and but like you can't measure the hard work with the amount of time that you're being at the office, and the amount of like you can't um you actually can't base your company on just like like what your a traditional is. Like you have to make sure you have to be open with different ideas and optimism to different to how it's evolving. You have to go with it because if you're gonna leave behind, then nobody's gonna stay at the company anymore since it is generational and there's a lot of more new generations coming in.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we might pick that up a little bit later. It strikes me as you're talking there, Nichole, that it's not just the workplace where, if you like, the baby boomers define the sort of like the pathway and the way things are working, and you're putting forward the case. Maybe even there's a little bit of a plea there that baby boomers need to be much more open to listening to the ideas of the next generation. Um, let's take it a little bit out of the workplace. We are clearly living through a time of very significant change, Nichole. Not just in the workplace, but geopolitically as well. You know, what gives you as a Gen Z, as you look at what's going on in the world right now, the greatest cause for concern, and indeed the greatest cause for optimism? What would be your perspective on those things?
Well, the greatest concern to me right now is everything that's happening in the world in terms of war. It's it is very concerning. What I feel like optimism right now is that a lot of youths and a lot of millennials as well, well, mostly a lot of youth are actually speaking out right now and fighting for the people that can't be fought. As you can see, there's a lot of rallies for stopping the wars, that everything that's happening right now, and you can see them actually fighting and actually standing with the people that can't speak. They're speaking for the people that are in the minority. Even if the only thing that they can do is speak right now, at least they're giving a platform. They're giving a voice to it. Like I I didn't even know. It's very naive of me that I didn't even know that there was a lot of famine in Sudan right now. And it might be a Gen Z thing, but when I'm seeing that on TikTok, my eyes are open and I have a sense of responsibility now to actually speak about it and spread awareness for it. So that's what my optimism is that since a lot of youth and a lot of people are now freely speaking about this topic, then we can actually make a real change.
Yeah, that's absolutely terrific to hear. Do you think, or well, is TikTok the primary source of where you get your information, Nichole?
No, well, 50-50. I would ra there's a lot of sense on TikTok that if you see it, it's just entertainment. But whenever I look at my TikTok, it's a lot of news because news sites, even Daily Mail, are already going into TikTok and giving awareness to all of this. So I would yeah, I would rather kind of watch it in a 15 seconds video and actually look it up rather than reading a whole article for it.
Yeah,
So it kind of is.
yeah. When you're talking about the Gen Z generation standing out for people who don't have a voice, it is very interesting to note that when you see um, very large gatherings nowadays, interestingly for me, there is a very healthy mix between the baby boomer generation and the Gen Zs. These many of the major issues of global conflict seem to be attracting people to stand side by side and here we are talking about the challenges in the workplace, but it's great to see that in the bigger issues out there, the baby boom generation, the Gen Z stand side by side with a single voice.
Yeah, it's actually amazing to see that. I it's amazing that the world, well, I feel like the world is going into the dumpster trash right now in a sense
Well,
of
yeah.
well, I mean, I haven't been here a while in the world, so I haven't seen a lot, but for what I am seeing and what am I consuming in the media right now, it's really bad. And I love to see how people are connected, and there's no generational, there's no race, there's no gender. It's just they're fighting for the same cause. They're fighting for
Yes.
the people that can't, like, that can't speak out.
Yeah, we definitely need more of that,
Yeah,
Nichole. So thank you
yeah,
for raising that. Just one last question on that. Do you
yeah.
think, as you observe it over the course of the last 12 months, as you say, the world is going into the dumpster truck? Do you think that that's accelerating, or do you think we're just on a consistent pathway of things like that? What's your thoughts there? Do you think it's getting
I
worse or much the same?
uh I mean, hopefully it won't get worse. Hopefully it can be better. But from what I'm seeing right now, I feel like it's gonna get worse, then it's gonna get better.
Okay, all right.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Well, I think we certainly need to talk more about that,
Yeah.
and perhaps that's kind of one of the questions that I think strikes to the very core of where we're trying to get to, which is we stand alongside each other together. So here you are sitting down having a cozy morning coffee chat with a baby boomer. When was the last time you had a sort of a chat with a baby boomer colleague? When was the last time you had that?
Mm, in a deep conversation, never. Because
Wow.
I've never come across with a Gen Z, I'm sorry, with a baby boomer that I feel like I'm comfortable to talk to about all of the stuff that like all of the stuff that I want to speak out of, even if I know that we would likely have the same issues, and we would likely have uh at least one related conversation again with each other. But the generational gap is actually menacing if you look at it, because when it comes to Gen Z, talking to a baby boomer that has a lot of experience, that experience a lot in the whole world, that have seen a lot of wars, have seen a lot of people, corruption, starving children. I I feel like I'm so inexperienced that I can't talk about it
Hmm.
to someone as well experienced and has lived here longer than me. That's
Yeah,
the yeah.
yeah. It's sad for me to hear that. I have to be honest. Although you touch into something as well, which is I'm clearly the nature of some of these questions. I'm very keen to hear that you're taking a very active interest in things that are going on around you, things that are
Yeah,
going on in the world. And it's lovely to hear that the takeaways that you feel that you're missing out on is that if the older generation would sit down in these kind of conversations, you would learn. I think it's very significant for me to say, Nichole, we had our children, quite late on in my career. In fact, our first son was born when I was 41 years old. So I don't have the Gen Z grandchildren, although I kind of made a bit of a fun reference at the beginning to being the grumpy granddad. I'm not a grumpy granddad yet. I'm not even a happy granddad. But I very much welcome your challenge to the fact that even if it's not in the confines of the formal environment of the office or if you like the career review, let's find the time to sit down, make the space to discuss, the big issues that are out there, so that if you like, we can share perspectives to each other. The one thing I will say on that, Nichole, is that my our children are millennials. There's not a day goes by that I'm not learning from them, and that's learning around around the changes that they seek and the changes that are coming. And I think that's a really, really important place for my generation to be.
Yes, this is actually very wonderful to hear because, in the sense of us being so scared because your baby boomers are so well experienced that we feel like that we can't talk anymore. Having a sit down conversation with someone like you, a baby boomer, with someone like me, it's a really wonderful space, and it opens a lot of doors and opportunities for everyone to start doing that as well. So there wouldn't be any generational gap anymore because generational gap is doesn't actually make sense. It shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be there if all of us are talking and all of us are giving ideas to each other. Then it wouldn't matter so much. But in the case of no one is talking, no one is opening up the conversation, no one is taking a step, then that's the time that there's gonna be a gap. So this is actually a very wonderful thing to hear, and I'm very happy. That's why I'm very happy to have this opportunity with you right now because I wouldn't do this with my grandparents. I can't. So this is very nice and very comforting to hear that you are open to start talking about your experiences as well as hearing the experiences of Gen Z and other generations as well.
Thank you for that, Nichole. And I want you to know that beyond the podcast, you are very welcome to sit down and have a coffee with me anytime, and especially
Thank
when I come
you.
through Dubai, where I know you've
Yeah.
made your home.
Yeah.
Let's jump back, if I may, to something that you raised earlier on,
Mhm.
indeed something which creates, I think, a different challenge for the older generations and the younger generations. I think I remember, I think I remember my children sort of being able to, skip and use an iPad well before I could, albeit that I think I've kind of
Yeah.
caught up a long way in that space. AI, that's the space I want to jump back to. Look, we're all becoming increasingly aware of the potential for AI to change, for the positive, but also to disrupt, what we've come to know as normal in the workplace and perhaps even normal in the way we actually live our lives. As a Gen Z, who is very used to living in a technology world from almost, the first things that you would be handed as a young child.
Was an
What
iPad.
was it? Well, there you go. Was an iPad
Was an
exactly?
iPad.
I'm pretty sure that was both an entertainment device, but it was also a device that would afford your parents a little bit of peace and quiet to get on
Yes.
with other chores. So
Yes.
so so, but of course, hugely powerful now. We all live our lives on our devices. They are central to the way we actually exist.
Yeah.
How are you viewing the relentless pace of rollout of artificial intelligence, both in terms of how it will change the way you work, um, and indeed change your life? Does it worry you that it might actually even replace the kind of jobs that you're currently fulfilling?
It's scary and interesting at the same time because it's interesting in the sense that there's there's a lot of new things that's happening right now in a span of a year. In a year, there's a lot of new technologies and there's a lot of new advanced AI that's happening right now. So it's very scary to the point that I've seen a lot of articles that it's they're getting a lot of they're firing a lot of Gen Zs and replacing them with AIs because Gen Zs right now just finished graduating. Like a
Mhm.
lot of them just finished graduating. They're in the entry level, and if an AI can do your job, then why have that job open in the first place? So that's scary in terms of that. But I feel like well, I'm a Gen Z and I use a lot of AI in
Mhm.
to help my work right now. So if you get an advance to that, if you start studying, if you start learning, then you would get a job and you would get a job better than AI. You are better than AI in terms of it having feelings and in terms of it learning um to grow, to adapt other things other than just knowledge. Yes, knowledge, you you're I'm even defeated by AI when it comes to knowledge because I have asked AI a lot of things, a lot of simple things. So it's better to not use AI uh as like you're dependent with AI. I feel like it's better if you treat AI as your coworker, as a
Yeah.
person that can help you build up, and as a not as, oh, I need AI, I need AI to do things, I need AI to do this. Then you would crumble to the ground because what happens if the chat GPT is down. Like a lot of times when chat GPT is down, I go to Twitter and they're all saying, "Oh, chat GPT is down. I have to leave work. I have to leave work. I can't do it anymore." So it's funny in a sense of that, but it's also scary that a lot of people are now depending on AI and chat GPT, which you shouldn't be. You should be um, getting the advantages of AI and making it your advantage, making it your opportunity and your strategy on how to get farther in life.
Yeah,
That
you've mentioned a lot of things in there, Nichole, and that was really great. And some of them, let's come back to in our next coffee chat. I really
yes,
enjoy that, but particularly, just a simple reference to when Chat GPT is down or whatever. And that took my mind off to the enormous energy consumption that is required for AI to work, and that enormous energy consumption, of course, is having potentially very big impact in terms of the energy transition story and the planet itself. And maybe that's a subject matter that we can pick up in our next conversation,
yes, yes,
Nichole.
absolutely.
You know, the point that you made that I really liked to come back to, because I think this is a point which is very relevant not just to the Gen Zs but also to the baby boomers, is the fact that we are all having to learn in a different way in this new space. If as we look to the future, getting the answer to a question is simply a case of asking it. The whole process of traditional educational style, as we have known it, will have to change wholesale. And it is very interesting to me to hear that right now, you were talking about and referencing young people coming out of university, but you were encouraging them to continue to develop their education or their learning and to learn how to bring AI into their life because they're not coming out of university
Yes,
necessarily understanding that. And I think that is incredibly important. You mentioned there to make sure that AI is a tool for you to live the life that you want
yes,
to live. And I think that's a great point, Nichole. So I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you making that. So interesting. If I can just come back one last time to the workplace and the employer, because I kind of want to drill down into the space of employers creating the right environment for that collaboration and indeed happiness in the workplace. Let's not forget that. That's a nice word
yeah,
to have in here. Traditionally, um, traditionally, loyalty was an enormous part of the work-life balance of my generation, and perhaps I might have reasonably expected to work for two or three employers over a 40-year career,
oh,
something of that nature. Um, Gen Z's, of course, very, very different.
very.
I'd like to get your thoughts on is loyalty to an employer, a thing of the past, or does it take a different form now? In terms of Gen Z employees. What do you think about loyalty as a word?
Well, loyalty, I actually, well, right now, everything that I'm seeing, I mean, I'm only 20. Like, I don't know what's happening yet in the world and how I'm supposed to go about with my career. But whenever I see, again, TikTok, whenever I see TikTok of people sharing their experiences about job hopping, about how, oh, I just work with one job and go to the next one after 2 years, and then I will get more money. And there's a sense of, whenever I listen to that, I feel like, oh, okay, so I will earn more doing the same job, at a different company if I do that. But then there's also a sense, of thinking that it's very hard to find jobs right now. So job hopping honestly isn't an option. And in terms of loyalty to the employer, uh, I actually don't get the sense of what that is. Um, I don't actually get the sense of what it is because, yes, I would be loyal to the employee if, of course, if I'm making great value to the company, then I will be loyal to the employee. It might be just my experience, but um, a lot of Gen Zs think differently from it, so I can't talk about how they're thinking
Yeah.
because, yeah, yeah, sorry.
No, 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 no. I was just going to I mean, I was just going to
Yeah.
maybe help you there in terms of, so if you, when, if you're looking at a company or your existing company or whatever,
Yeah.
when you're valuing that step into that company, do
Mm,
you touched on there, I can jump to another employer and I can make a little bit more money.
yeah.
Do you think that is the primary driver, or do you think, what that employer's working environment is like is the primary driver, or indeed might it be that you're afforded the opportunity for a personal balance on working from home, working in the office? How so if you were looking at sort of home versus office salary, or indeed perks in the office, how would you prioritize those things, Nichole?
For me, I would prioritize everything in the sense that they're all the same factors for me and all of
Okay.
the same, that I want them all to be at the same length because I want to meet that as my expectation to have a good salary, have a good work and life balance, and have a good benefits at work. I I wouldn't go down to if I'm looking for a job, like I wouldn't go down for my benefit. I wouldn't go down to salary. I wouldn't go down because I know that I can give this much to a company and I know the market worth right now for the things that I'm doing. So that driver for me, everything is a driver for me in terms of joining a company or staying in a company.
I think that's a great last piece of advice to pass back to the
Yeah.
sort of baby boomer employers. What I'm hearing there, by the way, is all of the above carry an equal weighting. So
Yeah.
when you're sitting down and looking at how do you shape your business, how do you shape the employment environment, conditions, for your workforce, whether they're baby
Yeah.
boomers or they're Gen Zs, don't see, that salary outweighs everything else, or
It
don't
does.
see that
Yeah.
working in the office outweighs everything else. Treat all of these things equally,
Yes.
and right across the workforce. Look, Nichole, it's been lovely chatting with you. Thank you for your perspectives today. I think there's some wonderful insights in there, for both generations, and that's ultimately what we are aiming to achieve with these conversations. I'm going to afford you the opportunity of one last question, Nichole, if I may. And it's not for me.
Oh,
It's not for
okay,
me
okay,
today.
okay.
Okay, it's a question that I'm going to allow you to ask our next Gen Z guest on the podcast. If you could ask our next Gen Z guest one question, what would it be?
Okay, I have it. Okay. So to the next Gen Z guest, How do you think your life would be if you're not a Gen Z? Like, how do you think your work would be different? How do you think if you've chosen a path in life, if you finished a college degree, do you think that you will have that in that past life, in the past generation? Even if it's not Gen Z, even if it's forward, do you think you would have the same life? And how different would your life be? That's that's a very tough question, and I can't even answer that for myself. So good luck.
Well, I look forward to you getting the answer to your question, Nicole. You're the first person that has the opportunity to ask it, and you'll be the first person that gets the answer from the next Gen Z. So,
Yeah.
Nicole, look, thank you so much for joining me today. I know
Thank
certainly
you.
I've got a lot from our conversation. I hope
I
you've
did
got something.
too. Yes,
Good. Well,
yes,
as I said, let's not be a stranger to this.
yes.
You know, I am, as I said earlier on, I'm sorry that my generation haven't reached out and
Yeah. I'm
shared their
sorry
perspectives
too.
with you
I'm
too.
sorry too. It's
But
two-way.
every journey starts with the first step, and today's
Yes,
the first step. So,
yes, it
Nicole,
is.
thank you so much for joining me,
Thank you.
and I look forward to our next chat. And
I look
for
forward to
everybody,
it too.
yeah, great. And for everybody, please join us every month on Gen Z Boomers for maybe a slightly different perspectives from time to time, and certainly to get that answer to Nicole's question. Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Nicole. Look forward to seeing you
Thank
soon.
you.